All right, welcome back to another episode of the Karter Cast. I'm your host, Karter Baughan. With me, as always, is Connor Sparrow. Connor, I can't believe we're saying this. If you would have told me Game 1 of this NBA season that the Denver Nuggets are the 2023 NBA champions, I would have said you're crazy. We had the Warriors coming off the back. Coming into this season, I went to Game 1. I was actually at the Nuggets' first game this season, opening night against the Utah Jazz. The Jazz whooped them. I'm at the game. I'm thinking, no shot. There's no way on earth this team's got it. I mean, obviously, Game 1, overreaction. Of course, you're always going to do that, especially when you're in person. But it never felt like the Nuggets were actually going to get it done. They always felt like they were going to be one of those kind of the Atlanta Hawks, Toronto Raptors type teams where they're good, they're fun, they might make a conference finals run, but they were never actually going to get it done. They're always missing that second piece. They're always missing the defense. They're always missing something. But tonight, they get it done. They win in 5 like we predicted before the series. Nuggets in 5. It happened. They lift the title. Jokic MVP. Initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts to your comment here. First of all, congrats on another great NBA season. As a fan, here we are. We can talk about, how great it was later. As far as your comments about the Nuggets go, coming into the year, I think I agree. I mean, they were always mentioned in talks like, oh, they can make a deep run. Like when you're talking title favorites, they were usually in the top 6, 7 conversation. Like they were there. They were mentioned. But coming into the year, did you really think they had a legitimate shot? Because I didn't. I was like, oh man, the Celtics, the Warriors could repeat again. You got LeBron always a threat. You got the Grizzlies coming off a great year. In the East, you have the 76ers, the Celtics, like I said, the Bucks. The Cavs with Donovan Mitchell, I thought could make a pretty deep run. Like there was all these teams that I was like, man, I'm not too confident about the Denver Nuggets. Like, can Jokic get it done in the playoffs? Do they have the supporting cast? I don't know if I can trust Aaron Gordon or MPJ in a series. Do they have a bench? A lot of question marks, and they were the most consistent team, Carter. I don't think it was a fluke at all. I think they were the most consistent team throughout the season. Last month of the regular season, they kind of chalked it up a little bit, but that was just to get ready for the playoffs. They had the 1 seed lockdown. I thought it was a pretty dominant run overall, Carter. Initial thoughts from the game tonight. I mean, the Heat made it a game, and that's all you can ask for as a fan is they made it a game for an otherwise underwhelming, I would argue, series. Tonight's game was pretty exciting to watch. It felt like a rock fight. Felt a little Game 7-ish, just, the low scoring, the complete physicality, the refs letting them play for the most part. I enjoyed watching it as a basketball fan, and everybody's going to be like, oh, Heat Nuggets final series, so unexciting, 5 games. That's fine, but the best team won, and there were some entertaining moments from the series. It wasn't 2016 3-1 comeback, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless, and the better team won, just like we predicted. Nuggets in 5.
I like what you said there about the best team winning because the second best team lost in the series. The Miami Heat were the second best team in the NBA playoffs. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we always talk about you got to give them their flowers. You want to give them their credit or whatever, but you kind of have to with the Miami Heat. It was so impressive, man. I don't know if we'll ever see anything like this again. The 8 seed going through both games of the play-in, beating every potential best team in their path. You could not have written a harder path for the Miami Heat, and they made it to the finals, ran out of gas. I mean, there was no answer there. And I want to shout out Jimmy Butler real quick. In his post-game press conference, everybody kind of noticed the nagging ankle, and we all know, look, let's just not hide behind it. If this was LeBron James, he would have came in a wheelchair and in a boot saying, oh my gosh, I was playing on a shattered ankle and, someone hit me with a baseball bat kind of thing. Jimmy Butler came in and he was like, nope, ankle wasn't a problem. We just got beat. That's all you got to say. That's all you got to say. No one's going to say anything back.
Right, and Jimmy Butler is a guy, unlike LeBron, who doesn't care about being in the headlines or controlling the narrative. There's not going to be any quotes about that. I mean,
I would pull back on that because what he said today about I'm not going to attend my own Hall of Fame speech and blah, 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 blah. He's having some quotes where he likes being in the headlines a little bit. So
I did see that. Okay.
Roll it back in a little bit, but I did want to say, because if that was a certain LeBron James, there would have been a wheelchair and it would have been a whole theater.
Yeah, I will say I've watched a lot of the post-game press conferences and pre-game, days-off press conferences during the finals. I've liked a lot of Jimmy's answers. As far as the Heat being the second-best team in the playoffs, they were, and I don't know if we'll necessarily see an 8 seed make this run again, but I think the potential path would be superstar, best player on the team gets hurt for some of the regular season, team starts flunking a little bit, they go down to near 500, and then this said superstar who got hurt comes back and leads a crazy run to the finals. I mean, there's a path for it, but as far as an actual team, no real injuries, like this is who they were during the regular season, being a real 8 seed, it's going to be tough to replicate that. And I know there's a lot more parity in the league now, a lot more talent. Like we said a million times, the 7-8 seeds this year would be the 3-4 seeds 10 years ago. So there's a lot more parity in the league, but to go through the run like they did and beat some of these juggernauts in the East, very impressive. It'll be hard to see that again.
Absolutely, but let's flip over to the Denver side. They win the title tonight. First title in NBA franchise history. Unbelievable. I know I have some Nuggets fans in my life. I mean, you just have to be happy for them because as Hornets fans, that is so inconceivable for us. And I texted my Nuggets friends. I said, hey, I would do unspeakable things to be in your position. To know that Nuggets fans knew they were going to win tonight. You're a 9-point favorite. Maybe you weren't going to cover the spread, but you knew you were going to win tonight or win this series at the minimum. You're up 3-1. I mean, just knowing that feeling, having it, and winning that title, man, like, unbelievable. It's so awesome for the Nuggets fans. It's so awesome for Jokic. He doesn't have to deal with the Steve Nash, Chris Paul narratives where, oh, he doesn't have a ring, so he's disqualified from every single argument ever. Those MVPs, even though obviously they're valid because he was the best player in the league for maybe 3 years in a row, they're obviously valid. It ends all the Embiid Jokic debates. It solidifies his name in NBA history. We're not going to do the GOAT talks or anything like that. It solidifies himself very, very high in all-time NBA rankings. Like, once that monkey is off his back, it just changes everything for a guy's legacy. I'm happy for Jokic, and I'm happy for Nuggets fans.
And the thing about Denver is they've had, the Jamal Murray injury, the bubble, like they were undermanned against the Lakers, and Jamal Murray gets hurt and misses the whole regular season the next year. They're finally healthy, and they won this title. I think, Karter, they're going to be around for the foreseeable future. They're going to be making runs. They're going to be in the conference finals. They're going to be that team in the preseason for the next 4 or 5 years. People are like, oh, the Nuggets, they have a chance to run it back this year. Oh, the Nuggets are always going to be there. They're going to be consistently talked about because I really do think Nikola Jokic is going to keep up this MVP caliber of play for the next 4 to 5 years at least. He's in his prime right now, and what's he going to do, lose athleticism? Like I heard somebody on Twitter talking about the best parts of his game are not, they're not athleticism. He's not an elite defender. He's not jumping out of the gym. He's not sprinting up and down the court at like crazy pushing the ball type paces. The best parts of his game are going to carry over. They're going to age like fine wine. I really do think so. The passing, the rebounding, the setting up the offense from the free throw line. They're going to be in this conversation for the next 4 to 5 years, maybe even longer, and they just have to keep those revolving pieces around him. They have to keep the roster rejuvenated and fresh and have a deep roster, and they're going to be they're going to be poised for deep playoff runs throughout the next half decade.
You mentioned the revolving door or whatever of the remaining players or whatever. That's also interesting because we talked about last episode about the new cap rules. Our team's going to follow the Heat model. Are they going to go, deep in their bag and try and pull out something out of the G League? Hopefully you get like a Caleb Martin type or whatever. The thing about Jokic is he's so good with playing with other players. He makes every single player on his team better, elevates them 2 times at the minimum. He makes them so much better. They are set up for success for the long haul because, you have Murray, you have Jokic. Yes, they can take up a lot of your salary, but the guys around them are pretty interchangeable. Yes, Michael Porter Jr. is a great talent. He can shoot the ball very well. Had a phenomenal game tonight. He was a big difference maker in tonight's game. He wasn't great all series, though. He was pretty inconsistent. Michael Porter Jr. is a guy you can replace. Aaron Gordon's a guy you can replace. These guys, like
KCP,
a guy you can replace. Like, even if they go get that big contract, it's not that difficult to replace them. But when you're looking at it, let's say from the Celtics' point of view, when you lose a guy like Derek White, you lose a guy even like Jaylen Brown, which is a little harsher, or even Marcus Smart. Those guys are really hard to replace.
I agree. And for what those specific guys mean to the Celtics, it's a lot different than what these guys mean to Denver. I think the role guys for Denver did a great job this whole run. They're one of the primary reasons they won this title. But like you said, the thing about Jokic, the thing about Jamal Murray, they can make the guys around them that much better. And while it does matter about personnel, it doesn't matter as much as, let's say, like a Boston team or a team with a star that doesn't make the guys around him as better as Jokic does. And I think you're going to see that. And I think guys are going to be willing to take pay cuts to play with him in the next few years. You're talking about veterans who are ring chasing in the MLE market, the buyout market. They're going to be using their mid-level exceptional, probably former All-Stars, kind of like the Brooklyn Nets did with LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, those kind of players. But I think the caliber of players will be a little bit higher. Maybe guys wanting to go in their career with Jokic just because of how much better he makes them. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, especially now once they get that ring under their belt, they're like, oh, this guy can win a title. Like, I'm just going to follow him. Once they see the result, they're like, yeah, I'll go over there. It's like the Bucks. The Bucks were just getting random players left and right. Every team Kevin Durant's on, random people just hop on for the vet minimum. Or even the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, they've seen he's won the ring. But honestly, let's talk about kind of the series real quick. Denver wins 4-1. Like I mentioned before, we predicted Nuggets in 5. I think it was the most chalk prediction in the world. Everybody had Nuggets in 5. Everybody had Nuggets -1.5 in the series. Some even had -2.5. Someone on this podcast had -2.5. Congratulations to Connor.
Thank you. Someone on this podcast also had Jamal Murray to lead the series in assists at plus 4,200. So
very, very nice.
My flowers, please. But
very nice.
We don't need to talk about the rest of the playoff run, anyways.
This series, though, let's talk about the Heat side of it. Jimmy Butler, everyone's going to point out, be like, oh, he couldn't do it in elimination time, all this, blah, blah, blah. He may have ran out of gas, but you just can't fault him. You can't fault him.
That's what I was going to say is people are going to be looking at his performance in these finals as like a negative. They're going to be looking at it from a glass half empty type of viewpoint. In my opinion, you need to look at it from a positive standpoint and say, wow, he really carried this 8 seed, this real 8 seed Heat team to the NBA Finals. The playoff run he had was immaculate. Like, he really got the most out of these guys. And yes, they came up short in the finals, but nobody even thought they'd make the first round. So when you look at it, like, you take a step back and you look at it from that perspective, I think you have to look at it as more of a positive. He had a great run. Nobody thought they'd be here. It made his teammates infinitely better. And yes, they fell short, but overall, this playoff run is a positive for Jimmy Butler. He can lead a team like this to the finals. That's a positive. And I know his performance wasn't the best in the finals, and you can look at that just, zoomed in, fine, but you got to take a step back.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. I just think the Nuggets just matched up insanely well with them. Like, whatever strength the Heat had, the Nuggets could fight back tenfold. I mean, who was going to guard Jokic in this series? Aaron Gordon was the perfect defensive matchup for Jimmy Butler in this series. He's bigger, he's stronger, and he's more athletic. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that. Jamal Murray is going to be better than any of the Heat guards. It was just a bad matchup for the Heat. It had to come sooner or later, but just an impressive run, man. Like, we're kind of repeating ourselves and beating a dead horse, but I just it's insane. Like, I don't think we're even appreciating how absurd this run was.
Right. And if you're the Denver Nuggets, I think Denver would have walked all over, obviously Miami, but also Boston. I think they would have beat Boston if they made the finals.
I think they would have walked over any team in the league.
And I heard the argument, I think it was Simmons saying that the Lakers were the second best team in the playoff run. And I don't know if I'd go that far, but the Lakers were a good team. If the Nuggets, had one injury or something, I'm taking the Lakers in the finals over somebody from the East. I know you're in disagreement on that, but the Lakers were poised to make a run.
Not necessarily. I was at the beginning of the playoffs. Before that Golden State series, I would have said no chance the Lakers could beat Boston or whatever. But when I saw that Boston team, I mean, Boston was the classic kid who turns in his homework at 11:58 p.m. on turnitin.com.
Right. I mean, Denver was a buzzsaw. So there's nothing else to say about it. The Heat ran into a buzzsaw. They had a great run. Look at it from a positive perspective, especially if you're a Heat fan. Enjoy the ride. You ran into a buzzsaw. Denver was destined for this, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nikola Jokic wins a ring, Finals MVP, 2-time MVP. If he wins MVP next year, I know he doesn't care about it or whatever. And our next segment, as you can see if you're watching on video over here, real quick, you can see that it's going to say, looking back at the 2023 season, we can kind of roll into this right now.
Let's do it.
Look back after this season, are we going to say that the wrong MVP was crowned? Because I feel like, hindsight's always 2020 or whatever. Obviously, you don't know the playoffs. It's hard to put yourself back in those shoes because we always do this time and time again. What does everybody say in those 2010 runs is, oh, how did LeBron not win the MVP every year? He was in the finals every year. But it is a regular season award, and I still don't disagree with Joel Embiid winning the MVP just because he really went for it, and Jokic kind of didn't care. He's like, whatever, doesn't matter to me. And that's where there's kind of a fault in the MVP, though.
Yeah, I see your point, and you hear the phrase revisionist history a lot, so I'm sure the majority of people are going to look back at this year and be like, look how dominant Denver was. Jokic Finals MVP, he led the playoffs in all these different stat categories, yet they gave the regular season MVP to Embiid. I don't think you need to look at it like that. I think you need to look at it as Embiid was a great regular season player. He really tried for it. It meant a lot to him. Jokic mailed it in for the last month, and I think the right player won for the regular season MVP. And Jokic won the finals MVP. So, boom, your argument's done. And I know this probably isn't the most accurate way to look at it, but if you look at the last 3 years and you look at the conversation, it's Giannis, it's Jokic, it's Joel Embiid, or maybe in the last 5 years, Jokic won 2 and Embiid won 1 in the last 3 years. And that seems right to me. And maybe Jokic will win another one next year in the next couple of years. But if you're looking at it from, like I said before, take a step back, Jokic with 2, Embiid with 1 kind of seems right now for this last 3-4 year stretch.
I think it does too. I think it feels disingenuous. It doesn't feel, for some reason, it doesn't sit right. Like when you really look back on things, obviously we're saying this after knowing the NBA Finals champion. We know Jokic won the Finals MVP. It's hard to say that, but I feel like in 5 years we're going to look back and be like, man, especially if Jokic keeps this up, we're going to do the revisionist history like we do on LeBron, is what I'm saying. But I agree with your point. Embiid deserved the regular season MVP, no doubt. The other thing kind of relating to the Jokic Embiid stuff, this is kind of a loaded question. So you know how you have the 3 GOATs in tennis. You have Djokovic, you have Nadal, you have Federer. Are we seeing the 3, not GOATs of basketball, but the 3 top dogs in basketball, and Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis Antetokounmpo?
No, I'm going to go ahead and say no, because the way Joel Embiid plays, his injury history, I think his career is going to be shorter than some may think. I think he's going to not fall off a cliff, but the way he plays, how big he is, and how much injury history he's had, I don't think he's going to be at the top of the league for as long as Jokic or Giannis. I think if you have to choose a third person, it's got to be Luka. I think consistently he's going to be putting up numbers. I don't know about from the winning standpoint, but if he can figure that out, I think he would be the tertiary guy up there at the top of the league.
I think you're right too, but the problem is the only team I actually believe in that will be good for the future, it's easy to say now after they won the title, is the Nuggets, though, because the Bucks are getting older. They're going to have a nightmare with the cap situation with Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. They have no draft picks. The Mavericks are a dumpster fire right now. They had to sign Kyrie Irving. Christian Wood is like their 3rd best player. The 76ers are begging James Harden to stay with them and not have to pay him the max because he's not good enough, but they don't want to pay him that much more. But they're in a conundrum too. They're probably going to lose their 2nd best asset. It's kind of a disaster for those. To go back and answer my own question though about, is this the 3 tennis goats like we saw, Nadal, Djokovic, Federer, are Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis going to be like that? Obviously, no. I don't think so. I just talked about it, the team aspect of it all. They're not going to win enough, and I also I just, like you mentioned with Embiid, it just doesn't seem like it's sustainable.
It doesn't, and there's a lot of guys in the league that you could see transcend to that level. I think SGA's got a good chance. I think Jason Tatum's got a good chance. I mentioned Luka before. There's a lot of guys that could get to that level, and I'm not ready to say set in stone that, these 3 guys
Jonathan
are at the top of the
Kuminga.
league. Caleb Martin, I'll counter you. I'm just not ready to say that those 3 guys are going to consistently be at the top of the league, head and shoulders above everybody else. I think there's too much talent in the league for that. And maybe I'll be wrong, and we'll look back in 5 years and say, wow, it really was just a battle between those 3 guys every single year. I don't think that's going to be the case. Yeah,
I don't think so either, but it's going to be the big overreaction tomorrow like we always see, Jokic, top 20. Is he above the big one is he above Dirk tomorrow? That's going to be the talk. First headline is has he passed Dirk, whatever. If you want my answer, it's yes, he has passed Dirk. But
I think so too.
It's just weird. It's just weird. When you look at like the future of Giannis and Joel Embiid, do you feel comfortable? Let's include Luka in this. Like, do you look at it positively? Because I don't.
I think out of those 3 guys, Embiid will probably be at the bottom of my list. Just like I said before, injury history. It just hasn't been able to get it done in the playoffs. He's had the revolving door of teammates. I'm more confident in Giannis, I think, than any of those guys.
Me too.
Behind Jokic. I think Giannis has the work ethic. He's very, very valuable in both ends of the floor.
Are we saying that just because we've seen him win it before?
See, that may be true, but I think that's a valid thing to include in our argument. We've seen
I think
him
it
win
is
before.
too.
He can get it done. We haven't seen Luka and Embiid win a championship, so we don't know that yet. So that's why it's hard for me to put them all in the same category.
I think that's true. So we're talking about, looking back at the 2023 season, different points. Talk about what are we going to look back at this season? Like we just talked about before, are we going to remember as the Jokic season or the Embiid season? Is this the start of the three GOAT thing or whatever? Tell me what different stuff that you think when we look back on the 2022-2023 NBA season, what are we going to think of?
So obviously we're going to think of the Caleb Martin Eastern Conference Finals. No, just kidding.
That's going to be one of the best trivia questions of all time.
100%. Who averaged, 20? Who scored 27 in Game 7? Whatever. Couple bullet points I have. Obviously, the number 8 seed Miami Heat run. Nobody thought they'd make it out of the play-in tournament. Negative point differential. Said it a million times. I think another one that this season is going to be remembered by is the Ja Morant situation with the gun and the nightclub, and then happening again, and Adam Silver coming down saying, we're not going to announce this punishment until after the finals. I don't want to be too rash here, but there's a good chance we look back at this year saying that was the last year of Ja Morant's career before it kind of fell off a cliff, before he got in all this trouble, before he had to be traded from Memphis. This was maybe the last normal year. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be a fact, but I think there's a good chance. This is a serious issue, and clearly Adam Silver takes it seriously.
Especially the way Adam Silver said it in those press conferences, because if you remember the Donald Sterling stuff, it kind of has a similar tone. Obviously, Ja Morant's not going to be banned for life unless we don't know what's actually going down behind the scenes.
Right.
But, I would imagine, if Adam Silver came out and said Ja Morant's out all next year, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think it's worth mentioning that this season, 2022-23, could be remembered as Ja Morant's last normal season.
Yes, I think that's a great point.
Do you have one? You want me to go again?
I have. Let me throw out a funny one real quick. I think the most underrated storyline out of this season is the referee, Eric Lewis, had a Twitter burner cheering for the Celtics. How is that not talked about more? That is insane.
They wouldn't let him ref a finals game because they're investigating it right now.
There's obviously something there if they didn't let him ref a finals game. This isn't a nothing burger, and it's never going to be talked about. It is going to get swept so far under the rug, and you might get one PR report saying oh, Eric Lewis fined $5,000 for tweets or whatever in early August. They might throw it in the middle of all the free agency drama just so nobody finds out about it.
I will say the few times you'll hear it brought up is if he ever gets put on a Boston game again, which I doubt he will. But if he does, then everybody's going to be like,
"Oh, he will."
Putting him under a microscope for every call, which they should, I guess.
And it's going to be the Scott Foster thing. Every graphic is, the Celtics are 15-1 with him, and the Lakers are 1-45 when Eric Lewis refs. But I thought that was an underrated, kind of funny part of the season. I also had Ja Morant written down. Give me one of yours.
Yeah, so one that I'm thinking about that we've talked about on the show a couple of times so far, was this the last playoff run for the Warriors' big three of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green? Because we've said it before, there's a good chance Draymond Green leaves in the offseason. Maybe not because he had Steve Kerr on the podcast.
Yeah, I don't think he does.
We'll see. Klay's going to be asked to take a pay cut. We don't know how that's going to go. Even if they stay together, though, there's no guarantee they'll be back in the deep playoff run again. So this might be the last run of those three as the main cogs of that Warriors team. I could be wrong. They could retool, but that's my thought.
And Jordan Poole's on the next Spirit flight out of San Francisco.
Yeah, if you look at the roster around them, it doesn't look great right now. There was a time when they had Kuminga, Moody, Jordan Poole, Wiseman, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're perfectly set up for the future. They've retooled. This is the next era of Warriors basketball. They're going to be a juggernaut. Not anymore, Carter. Not anymore.
No, not at all. I don't think it's the last run. I think they're going to run it back next year. I think they're going to be fine. I'm not saying they're going to win the finals, but they're going to be competitive. And when it comes playoff time, as long as they're healthy, it's going to be very hard for a lot of people, including myself, to pick against the Warriors.
I don't know, Carter. Another year older. I know Curry's going to be this, a dominant level again, but Clay's getting another year older. Draymond is. I mean, these guys.
But like maybe it's a little addition by subtraction. Getting rid of Jordan Poole this offseason. Maybe because I like the punch on Jordan Poole from Draymond Green really shifted this season, and you could tell there were so many subtle comments in that Draymond Steve Kerr interview where you're like, oh, okay, like there was a lot going down here behind the scenes.
Clearly that stuck with him throughout the whole year, and that's another moment that you just mentioned. That'll be another moment from this season. It started the season off was that punch from the defending champions, which is nuts.
Another thing I had written down was, is this the end of the Bucks?
I think maybe the current version of the Bucks. I think we could see Middleton, Brook Lopez gone this offseason, but I think they're going to retool around Giannis eventually. I don't think he leaves. I don't think he leaves.
Or does Giannis leaves? Or
I don't.
Coming up next, does Giannis Antetokounmpo leave Milwaukee to go to the New York Knicks?
Fear of the deer? Is Giannis taking his antlers out of Milwaukee? Find out next.
I'm just saying. Brian Windhorst, he's putting a little birdies out there. I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, I'll take that with a grain of salt. I'll take that, Carter. That's a good one. Okay.
It's a grain of salt one, but it's a long shot. But I think you're definitely right. I think this is the end of the current Bucks we see. I think they're dead in the water. Obviously, they had to come get a new coach and everything like that. But I think Giannis is slowly laying the groundwork to get his way out of Milwaukee.
I think he'll give them a couple years to try to retool a new roster around him and get a few more pieces in there. But I think the leash is going to be short.
I think it's going to be 1 year. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to be next summer.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Can I go next? Yeah. So one you mentioned before the show, I also thought about it. Will this be the last year this Boston Celtics iteration is together? Will Jaylen Brown be gone in the offseason? Was this the last run of kind of that Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown experiment that made so many conference finals, had so many playoff wins, especially at a young age? But are they going to break them up this offseason?
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to break him up. They bring back Joe Mazzulla, which I was kind of surprised about, but I mean, it really shows they believe in him. Brad Stevens is going to get, different guys for their bench, getting better assistant coaches, getting better scouts. He's doing a lot behind the scenes there. I think they're just going to run it back, and I think they're going to be good. I think there's a lot of overreaction. I think we're all thinking that there's going to be this massive overhaul, or there's this one perfect trade out there that they can go get Bradley Beal for nothing, or they can go get Damian Lillard, but does that really make you that much better? I don't think so. I think it kind of keeps you in that same category, maybe a little bit better with Damian Lillard, in my opinion, but no, I think they run it back. I don't think it's the end, and I think they're going to be very good next year. I don't think they're going anywhere, and I think there is going to be a real chip on their shoulder now where, a lot of the times they talk, they made that Eastern Conference Finals run. They thought they were literally the 93 Bulls or 98 Bulls, whatever. Like, they thought they were the greatest team in the world. And now that they've been to the finals, they've had this massive disappointment. I think we see that reverse where they come back next year, chip on the shoulder, and they really run it back. I honestly, if they were in the finals next year and they win the finals, I would not be surprised at all.
They're a big away. I mean, Gallinari was hurt this year for them. He would have been a nice stretch off the bench. If they can get a big, because Al Horford's only getting older, he probably can't play 35 minutes a game again next year. Rob Williams is too inconsistent. If they get another big man and maybe another wing off the bench, they're in good shape. I think their core is good enough to get over the hump. And we've said it a million times, the return they could get for Jaylen Brown is not worth it in my eyes. So I think you're right. I think they run it back, and I think they can get over the hump. I really do.
Yeah, I think almost all these teams are going to run it back. But anyhow, looking back on this season, I don't think this will be the end of the Celtics. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But I still think they run it back one more year. A lot of these things we're talking about, I feel like next year is when we officially know a lot of these things.
I will say, I've noted on this podcast the last couple episodes, I don't think you can win a title with Jaylen Brown as your second best player. I'm gonna bullet point that and say with this version of Jaylen Brown as your second best player, I think he can get to a level maybe
that's not
where
fair.
you can.
You have to give a real take. Give a real take.
They need another piece. They need another guy.
Okay.
Jaylen Brown can't be the second best player on the title team. I think they're a big away.
There we go.
This core, though, I think this core can get over the hump, but they're going to have a little bit of addition. It's not going to be able to be the iteration of the Celtics we saw this year.
Another one I had was this kind of leans in what I just said before about we'll officially know next season, but looking back on the 23 season was the Durant trade. So when we look back, yes, unless like Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson explode and become like all-stars and they're legit, which I think Mikal Bridges can be, but I think if next year, no matter the result for the Phoenix Suns, whether they lose in the first round or win the title, I think we're going to remember that Kevin Durant trade. But I don't think this season, like, yeah, we'll remember it happened, but it doesn't have the same impact until we know the results of next year, in my opinion.
I think that's spot on, and I'm going to stick with this same team card. I'm going to bounce off you. Are we going to remember this year as Chris Paul's last season before his career just falls off a cliff?
Yes, absolutely.
I really do think so. I think he's not going to be with the team next year. He's going to go somewhere else, and he's not going to have as significant of an impact. And I think we're going to look back at this year and be like, this is Chris Paul. This was Chris Paul's last real run before his career really just took a nosedive. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think Chris Paul's the dog that's about to go to the Ants farm upstate.
Yeah. I don't hate that at all. I mean, I don't know. There's a good chance he could go somewhere and ride off into the sunset and never win a ring. I don't know if he's going to really like be that guy to ring chase.
I think he might be the guy to ring chase. I don't know. It depends how much money he wants because a team like Charlotte might pay him a lot of money, but a sneaky one, like he would kind of be perfect in San Antonio.
Yeah, I've heard that mentioned a couple of times. If he wants to try to compete, young guys, the timelines don't really match up. But the organization's great. Hall of Fame coach, obviously, number 1 draft pick, generational guy coming in. I could see the appeal.
He gets to bring in a certain culture that Popovich has already established, gets to reinforce that, gets to work with guys. Like I think someone like a Trey Jones would be kind of the perfect guy to work under Chris Paul. Somewhat similar play styles. I'm not saying Trey Jones is the next Chris Paul by any means, but kind of similar play styles, really hard defensively, doesn't force a lot of turnovers, kind of average jump shots. Chris Paul's is obviously a little bit better, and then obviously gets to play with Wembanyama and all that. But speaking of the Spurs, are we going to remember the Spurs getting Wembanyama from this season, or is that kind of like that weird like in-between bridge off-season thing?
I think that'll be more of like a bridge off-season thing. I think when you look back at this season, I think it'll tilt more towards next year.
Because I'm not sitting there thinking about like let's say like the 2016 season. I'm like, oh, that was what I remember from that year was Frank Kaminsky getting drafted. No, I remember us losing in Game 7 to the Miami Heat. Right.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Okay. Just one
funny one I had. You can go in more depth on this one. Lakers Celtics when Tatum fouls LeBron at the buzzer.
Yes.
And LeBron freaks out, and Pat Bev has the camera pointing it. It was Eric Lewis. Wasn't it Eric Lewis, actually,
yes.
funny enough?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
So he's pointing the camera to Eric Lewis. Noted Celtics fan now. Actually, put your tinfoil hats on. Why do you think that foul wasn't called?
Oh, that's the easiest conspiracy theory that happened this season, besides the Spurs getting Wembanyama. The other thing is, the LeBron temper tantrum was the funniest part of that whole thing. Like, it was literally telling a kid he can't have candy.
You would have thought that, like, one of his loved ones got shot or something. The way he was, on the floor.
It was literally like a 5-year-old. It looked like me after Duke losing a basketball game.
Yeah, it looks like me after the last leg of my parlay loses by 0.5, lose by the hook, and I'm just, beating my head against the wall.
Yeah, it looks like me after every Panthers football Sunday.
Yeah, sounds about right. After every Sam Darnold snap.
No, Sam Darnold is cool. I like Sam Darnold. Every Baker snap.
All right,
F Baker. F the Buccaneers. Fine. F them. All right, the Lakers tantrum. That will be remembered in this season. More so than what we've said about other parts. Because that was so insane if you were watching it live.
It was hilarious. I think a couple of ones that like potential ones that we could look back on and remember is this Shai Gilgeous' first true breakout year. He averaged 31.5, good for 4th in the league this year, 5 boards, 5.5 assists on 51% shooting, and really led that Thunder team. A lot of people picked him to be dead last in the league, at least bottom 3, bottom 4, maybe not dead last, but bottom 3, bottom 4 tier for sure. He led them to a pretty decent record to the play-in game, and he really stepped up as a leader, and I think there's a good chance he takes off in a sense that next level of like real superstardom, gets Chet back next year, get a couple more pieces around him. There's a good chance we look back at this season saying, oh, we all should have known from this year that he would be this.
How excited are you for the Chet Victor Wembanyama game?
Oh, that's gonna be electric. I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean,
like
nobody's touching the paint.
It's like two praying mantises fighting.
Nobody's touching the paint. I mean, it's just gonna be like 3-pointers and
just
off
like
the dribble
slow
floaters.
motion moving. It's gonna be hilarious. I'm very excited. I'm very curious to see what Chet's gonna be like next year. I
am too.
Like next year, if you've ever been like on the fence about maybe I should buy League Pass or I don't know, maybe I shouldn't buy League Pass. I think next year is the greatest League Pass year of all time. You're gonna have Scoot Henderson maybe in Charlotte, Brandon Miller. You're gonna have Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio, even though they may be on national TV a good chunk. Cade Cunningham is gonna be back for the Pistons. That's a sneaky good League Pass team. Who knows what the Rockets are gonna be? Like those are the bottom of the barrel. I'm not even talking about the Magic or, let's say, even the Nets, even though they're a little more boring than the other teams.
The Kings
are the greatest League Pass team. They're not even League Pass anymore. They're just flat out good.
Yeah, Thunder, like we just said, are going to be a great League Pass team.
Thunder.
Sneaky Charlotte's might be fun again next year. I mean, Miles Bridges.
Charlotte's going to be fun again.
You don't even talk about Miles Bridges off the court, but on the court, they're going to be fun again this year.
I mean, if you're telling me the starting lineups, LaMelo Ball, Scoot Henderson, Miles Bridges, P.J. Washington, and Mark Williams, you're telling me you're not tuning in?
That's a fun lineup.
That is very fun. That is very also probably injury prone, if we're being honest. Another thing I wrote down from looking back on this season was just chapter 23, 24 in the Kyrie saga. Another chapter.
The novel. The novel, yeah.
Yeah, we're in 3rd Kyrie chapter 23 verse 22.
It's going to be looked at. It's going to be looked at like, man, after he left Cleveland, tore up Boston, went to Brooklyn, didn't work out, cried out and left, went to Dallas, him and Luka didn't work. Like it's going to be in that big scope of things, like just the list.
Kyrie Irving's trying to bring the ABA back because, the NBA doesn't appreciate what he's given them. So now he goes and plays in the former ABA and then just stupid stuff like that. Like he randomly forces his way out to play for the Carolina Cougars, former ABA team. I think that's about all I had, though, for the season.
I had one more, just quick one. I wrote down, is this going to be the year that we remember the Kings' arrival? Like, are they going to be a consistent playoff team for the next 5-6 years?
I think they'll be a consistent playoff team, but I think it's going to be how we think of how NBA culture thinks of like the Hornets in the 90s with those Muggsy Bogues, Larry Johnson teams.
Like
I think
fun
they're gonna
teams.
I think they're going to be like, wow, man, like, people talk about games at the Hive in Charlotte, like that Charlotte Coliseum. That had to have been awesome. It was so loud, such a fun atmosphere. Oh, what'd they do? Oh, they won a playoff series.
Carter,
Yeah,
light the beam.
exactly.
We're missing the obvious one. Light the beam will be a huge storyline that's remembered this season.
That'll be, oh my gosh, that's gonna be something like you think about. You're sitting there at like 2 a.m. with your buddies, like you're eating crappy fast food, and you're like, you guys remember Light the Beam?
I just
Malik
wonder,
Monk turned into Kobe Bryant.
I just wonder how much that's going to stick. Like, how many years is it going to be around? Because if it's not around that many years, it's going to be like we said before, a trivia question. What was the Kings' phrase during the 2022-23 season that they rallied behind to make the playoffs as a 3 seed?
Yeah, I'm curious to see the Kings next year because this year it was cute. Next year it's expectations.
Right, exactly. There's big expectations.
And I think, like I said, I think it's going to be like those 90s Hornets teams where it's like, yeah, they were cool, man. Like, oh, what'd they do? They won one playoff series. They never made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't see the Kings ever making it to the Western Conference Finals, but unless they get like some crazy piece we don't know about. But no, I think that's a great question. But I think it'll just be like, yeah, that was a fun Kings team. That's about it.
Last one. Will this be remembered as the year Steve Clifford returned to Charlotte?
Oh, will this be the year that Bryce McGowan's set the stage on fire?
I think there's some good ones though. I think looking back at this year.
Actually, last one.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Is this laying the foundation for the Knicks being a legit team in the NBA?
I'm not willing to go that far yet.
I think I am.
Sell me on it.
Because I think they're going to figure out this Julius Randle piece in the offseason.
He's got to be gone, right?
He's got to be gone. I mean, we talked about the all mentally weak team, and he's got to be gone. If they can figure out that Julius Randle piece of it, then the free agent destination part is real now. We always said it for years. Everybody's like, oh, watch out for the Knicks. No one actually wanted to play for the Knicks because Dolan and all that. But now they got Leon Rose in there. Jalen Brunson showed you can be successful. They were, a 5 seed this year in the NBA playoffs. I think we're going to see a very drastic swing one way or the other. I see the Knicks either really drastically improving, being a 1, 2, 3 seed in the East, like really competing for championships if they get the right free agents and everything, or a more likely scenario, second week of December rolls around, Tom Thibodeau, guys aren't playing defense anymore and he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to put my faith in the Knicks. I think we very well could be looking at this year as kind of their quote-unquote arrival as a competitive, competent franchise again. Jalen Brunson's a very attractive guy to play with, makes teammates better, but I'm not willing to go that far yet. I think there's potential there, but I'm not willing to put my stock in that.
All right, is that it, looking back?
That's all I had. It's going to be an interesting year to look back on in 5 years. We're going to look back and be like, wow, Nuggets
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. I'll say this, it was a long playoffs. It felt long. It felt, it kind of overstayed its welcome a little bit in the finals.
And I will say, for as much as I did enjoy this Heat Nuggets finals, not as much as I've enjoyed a lot of finals in the past, but I enjoyed watching it. It didn't feel like it had the same stakes as like a Cavs Warriors series, It didn't have
Obviously,
all the marketable name brand superstars, which is not like a detriment, but it's like the stakes just felt a little lower, And like even the Denver celebration, it was kind of like Jokic kind of like brushed it under the rug almost. Like he forgot his finals MVP trophy on the podium and like said he wasn't even excited for the parade, wants to go home. And like, that's fine. Like he's a humble superstar and that's a good guy to have in the league, but it just didn't really feel like the finals as much as it has in years past.
Yeah, it really the only person who looked like they were like so pumped was like Jamal Murray.
Aaron Gordon was like tearing up, and like Michael Porter Jr. And that was it. Like it just seemed like it almost seemed like they won the Western Conference Finals, and then there's like still another round to go.
And I need to say this: huge congratulations to the greatest player on the Nuggets roster. Congratulations, NBA champion Jack White. You have got a ring. He's in a great club with the James Michael McAdoo's of the world, maybe future guest on this podcast, Quinn Cook, winning a ring, NBA champs, baby.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, Australian legend right there, Duke legend. Also, shout out Ish Smith as well.
Oh, Ish Smith, yeah, Concord, North Carolina, Wake Forest, former Hornet, great guy.
Former every team.
What were the odds that Jack White would win an NBA title coming out of college?
If you can find me a book that posted the odds for him to be on a team at the end of the year, then I'd love to see it because,
like really think about this. Jack White has an NBA ring. Cam Reddish they were on the same team.
No hate to Jack White. There was no bone in my body that thought he would be on an NBA roster in June.
No, none at all. It's a compliment. It's so impressive.
Didn't he play in the NBL for a couple of years?
Yeah, he played in Australia. Bo Estes is telling us about it.
He balled out over there. Good for him. I mean, that might be the pipeline. Man. Yeah, good for him.
Awesome for him, dude. I'm so happy for Jack White. Great guy. And nothing else on this finals?
How funny is that DeAndre Jordan got a ring before Chris Paul and Blake Griffin from the Lob City years?
And also that he
played
in the finals.
And played tonight. And got a block.
And that's the thing is Blake Griffin's been ring chasing.
He has. And DeAndre Jordan just fell into the right situation.
So fun. Oh. Last thing I had was the famous LeBron getting the scoring title. And then Thomas Bryant is the one who's like going for the post up, and he wins the ring this year.
That's so funny. Obviously, that's a moment this season will be remembered by as LeBron's scoring title. But that picture's hilarious.
Yeah, that's poetic justice in my mind. But yeah, the LeBron scoring title will obviously be looked back on. I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, I missed that. I missed that one too.
It's just automatic. But last thing I want to do, and then we'll get out of here. It's like almost 2 a.m. East Coast time. We're exhausted. Wrapping up the NBA season. We'll be back. We'll be doing NBA draft stuff with Adam Stenko, and we're gonna be back doing the drafts, the Fat Guy draft, whatever. before we get into the wrapping up the show, I want to do something hilarious. So people who aren't watching, or people who are listening right now, they'll understand this is kind of a joke, kind of funny. Like, I really don't mean this in a serious way, but I am going to post a TikTok about this to just how stupid this is. I'm going to do it with a serious face so people on TikTok think I'm like dead serious about it.
Okay.
Give me your NBA Finals champion in 2024.
I'm going to go, Carter, for the 2024 NBA Finals way too early champion. Give me the Boston Celtics.
I think LeBron is going to get his 5th. What does he have? 5 rings? He's 4 or 5 rings.
He has 4, right? 4.
He's got 4, yeah. I always get mixed up with him because, the Lakers and all that. I think LeBron James is going to get his 5th ring. I'm taking the Lakers to win the NBA Finals in the 2023-2024 NBA season. Lakers, Celtics in the finals. Give me Lakers in 7.
And give me Kyrie Irving for the Lakers as Finals MVP because he's coming back to save LeBron's legacy.
I just want to see how stupid it is. Everybody in the comments be like, these guys are stupid. This is just like a test clip. And you're listening to a live test clip that we're going to post on social media and people are going to get so mad about. It's so funny. And if you listen to the podcast, this can be our little inside joke. But thank you guys so much for listening. All NBA playoffs. It's been a long, fun ride. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back. We'll be doing NBA draft. NBA drafts next week, which is crazy.
I know, I'm excited. The Hornets, number 2 pick, fell one short again, but here we are.
We get to talk Hornets, though. We get to finally talk about the Hornets.
Oh, thank the Lord. I've been waiting.
Our guy, Adam Stanko, is coming back on next week. We're going to do we have a snake draft planned. Going back to the fat guy draft real quick, the consensus was that Ben won the draft. From the data I gathered, I sent it out to a lot of people, blah, 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 blah. The data I gathered was that Ben won the draft with his 4th round pick, which was buying groceries, specifically healthy groceries, on your way home and then still eating out. Or buying groceries and then eating out right after you buy your groceries. So it's an all-time pick. The second best pick in the draft was first to grab seconds, all-time pick, elite pick. I think if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say... Maybe not a percentage, but I would say it was Ben, then Connor, then myself. I would say I got the bronze medal in that one.
That's okay. There's no losers in that draft. There's no losers. I think they're all good picks.
Just all fat people. That's all.
Yeah. Well, there is 3 losers in that draft, actually, if we're thinking about
just 3 losers. It's just who's...
Oh, man.
Oh, gosh. Anyhow, we'll be back with snake. We're going to do snake drafts all summer. I'm excited. I got a bunch of stuff planned. Adam Stanko coming on. Interviews are going to be rolling back up, especially in August. August is going to be awesome for interviews, especially with college basketball coaches coming on. I'm very excited about that. Stay tuned all summer. We'll be back next week. As always, thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Check out CarterCast.com. Follow us on social media at Connor_Sparrow, at CarterBA on Twitter, at CarterCast on every social media out there. We are on Truth Social. We are. It's official.
Once again, if you haven't noticed yet.
A lot of CarterCast on Truth Social. It's very great.
Some are saying it's the best social media follow in all of history.
All right. Make sure to follow us. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.